Finally, Syracuse actually does what it's supposed to do.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, look at that, ladies and gentlemen. See? They are capable. Even without Donnie Freeman, they can still dominate inferior competition. Let's talk about Syracuse basketball's 77-48 victory over Stonehill on Monday night. Hello, everyone. I'm Jackson Holzer. This is Locked On Syracuse, and thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and we're always free and available wherever you get your podcasts here on the #1 sports podcasting network. And on tonight's post-game reaction show, it didn't start out great. It was a 6-point game in the second half, but credit to Syracuse. They found a way to defeat and dominate an inferior opponent on their home floor and Stonehill, and they deserve credit for that. We'll go over some of the positives of this game. Naithan George, last 2 games, he's looked a little bit better. Maybe more of the Nate George that we were expecting, just in a different way. And also, we will recap this game and talk about the road ahead for Syracuse after this one. All that and more coming up on Locked On Syracuse this evening. And before we get to everything, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. The expectations for this game, and it really doesn't matter how you actually feel about Syracuse, because like I said, in the offseason and in season previews, the expectations for Syracuse have to match the stakes. They know that they have to make the NCAA tournament. We don't have to go through the whole spiel on why it is so critical they make the tournament this year. Because the expectation is that they have to make the tournament, they are expected to do things that tournament teams are supposed to do. So, even though Syracuse in the previous 4 games didn't exactly look all that good, they are still expected to dominate a team that is ranked well outside the top 300 in the net on their home floor. Because that is what tournament teams ultimately do. In the first half, Syracuse got out to a 15-5 lead. Naithan George was aggressive. More on him later in the show. Starling got off to his usual, I'm going to score 7, 9, whatever points right away. And actually, one of those buckets was his 1,000th career point in college basketball. So congratulations to Starling on that. But after that, after getting out to a nice early cushion where he felt that Syracuse could build on it, they didn't exactly play all that well. Part of it isn't really on them. And I have to get on Coach Autry for this. And some of you pointed it out during the game as well. Adrian Autry decided to put in an all-bench lineup. And the 5 players on the floor consisted of Tyler Betsy, Kyan Anthony, Akir Soare, Luke Fennell, and Bryce Zephyr. Let's not do that again. Okay, let's not put out that exact lineup on the floor anymore, because it didn't have any success. In fact, it actually hurt Syracuse against Stonehill. The Orange from here on out are going to be playing ACC competition. So let's not put out those 5 players all on the court at the same time. Is that too much to ask? Am I being too critical of Adrian Autry to suggest that that is a bizarre lineup, especially in the first half of a game where you kind of want to blow this team out? So it's not the time to mess around just yet. I'm just saying. But regardless, Stonehill had 13 second chance points in the first half compared to Syracuse, who had 0 second chance points in the first half. And the reason why Syracuse honestly was winning at all was because J.J. Starling and Naithan George had a combined 27 points at the end of the first half. Other than that, and a nice early start, it seemed like after that substitution, even when the starters were eventually brought back in, Syracuse could not extend its lead beyond 12 points. It was just stuck. And in the second half, it looked like it was going to be another typical Syracuse game that we have seen over these past 4 games. And I got to be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, if that is what actually occurred, I don't know if I'd actually be able to talk for 30 minutes. I'd be out of material. Or better yet, I may have just completely rerun another episode, maybe from the last game against Northeastern, and just blurred out the name Northeastern and put in Stonehill instead, because honestly, the same thing would have occurred for 4 or 5 consecutive games at that point, one of which being obviously a loss to Hofstra. At one point, Stonehill was within 6 points with the ball in the second half. So it wasn't great. I know that they won by 29 points, but it didn't look like it was going to be that way. You had Akir Soare from the right corner attempting a 3, and not just a desperation 3 at the end of a shot clock. That you understand. You need to get a shot up there. No, it was a 3 with 9 seconds left on the clock, and Adrian Autry promptly and deservedly so benched him. Totally benched him. I mean, you could sit here and make a joke about it all you want. Oh, it was funny that he took a 3. It's not funny. I was laughing at how stupid it was. So maybe it was funny in that regard. But Syracuse, slowly but surely, towards the end of the second half, they started to build a lead. First key was that the effort was better. We talked about in the first half, Stonehill having 13 second chance points compared to Syracuse 0. Stonehill was beating Syracuse on loose balls, one of which I promptly pointed out about Nate King's, which was egregious on an offensive rebound. It led to a Stonehill 3-pointer. But in the second half, Stonehill had just 4 second chance points compared to Syracuse having 12. And here's where the moment where the game started to become a absolute dominant victory for Syracuse. It's 59-45. There is 6:41 to play after Stonehill had just made a 3. So it's a 14-point game. And at this point, you're thinking it could go either way in terms of how much does Syracuse win by. Obviously, they're not going to lose to Stonehill. Okay. Nobody's thinking that they're going to lose, but are they going to win by 10? Are they going to win by 9? Or are they going to win, by 29, which is what they ultimately did? You had no idea up until that point. Nate Kings, who had just gone on about a minute ago, immediately responds with a 3, blocks a shot on the next defensive possession. It leads to J.J. Starling getting a fast break layup. So in the span of about 30 seconds, Syracuse goes on a mini 5-0 run to take a 14-point game and make it a 19-point game. Was that the moment you felt the game also turned? I have a feeling that you're going to agree with me on this, because here's why. Including that 5-0 spurt, Syracuse went on a 16-0 run. And that was the moment where the whole run started. And so it went from a game where it looked like Syracuse was doing its usual, well, they're going to win, but I'm going to have to be the Grinch. Might as well paint my face green. I have to be the guy that's negative and tell you it's not good enough. And then they go on a big run, which is what we have been asking for from this team for the past 4 other games. So thank you, Syracuse, for an early Christmas present. Now they get 9 days off before their next game, which is a big one. But at least now it seems like, or I hope, we won't know until New Year's Eve when they play Clemson. But hopefully that run to end the game gave him confidence for conference play moving forward. Comment your thoughts right now, your impressions on Syracuse's 77-48 victory over Stonehill. Now, coming up, Naithan George has been a different player the last 2 games. Why has he looked so much better? We'll talk about it next on Locked On Syracuse. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. And live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. You can bet the next touchdown score, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer. Once again, this is a post-game reaction show to Syracuse taking down Stonehill on Monday night, 77-48, delivering a dominant victory. Thank goodness they did. A big reason why Syracuse got a dominant victory over Stonehill, and also a big reason why Syracuse was fortunate enough to beat Northeastern the other day, is the play of Naithan George. I got to admit to you all, ladies and gentlemen, I was not feeling very good about Nate George after his donut against Hofstra. At that point, he had been disappointing. But ever since then, he has looked like a different player. And I think, again, it's only been 2 games, technically 3, but really it's the last 2 that we're talking about. His mentality has changed because I think hopefully he understands what this team needs from him. What do they need from him? Well, last year, he led the conference, the ACC, in assists at Georgia Tech. He's a playmaker. He wants to set up his teammates. He is a more traditional point guard. But the team needs him to store the basketball. They need him to have that attack mindset, that mindset of occasionally, not all the time, but occasionally calling his own number because he is talented, creating his own shot, and obviously making the shot. Not only in that Hofstra game did he have 0 points, he also only attempted 4 shots. But now he's calling his own number at times. Tonight against Stonehill, I'm pulling up the stats right now. Just give me a moment right here. Nate George took 12 shot attempts, and that was second on the team behind JJ Starling, who had 17 shot attempts. We expect that JJ Starling is going to shoot the ball a lot, but this team also needs Nate George to have that attack mentality and look to store the basketball. Back-to-back games now where he has had 20 or more points. So I ask you all, ladies and gentlemen, do you think that Nate George has turned a corner? Do you think that he is ready for ACC play? Comment your thoughts right now in the comments section below. It's only been 2 games of him dropping 20 or more points, and I don't expect that he's going to continue to drop 20 or more points night in and night out, game in and game out. But it is encouraging to see that he is now looking to store the basketball. That's important, especially in this system, which is designed as heavy ISO ball, occasional high screen. We don't need to get into the whole half-court offense. Bottom line is that he's got to look to score. And that's what he's done over the past 2 games. And it's leading to him looking like a different player. It's leading to him looking like the player we hoped he was going to be when Syracuse got him in the transfer portal. It's different because we thought he would be more of a passer, but we'll take a scorer as well. Can't have enough of those in this day and age. So that's a positive. But I have to get on the team for this. Ladies and gentlemen, we were hoping that the free throw shooting had maybe turned a corner, that they were giving us baby steps, 73% over the last 2 games. 73% isn't great, but it's improvement. It's better than the worst free throw shooting team in Division I college basketball, which was Syracuse. Might be Syracuse again. But tonight, they took a step backwards, back to their usual not making free throws. I am pulling up the numbers here. 14 of 29. 14 of 29, ladies and gentlemen. I'm doing the math for you all. 48.275. I'm not going to read out all number. I'll round for you. 48.3%. So they have not turned the corner with free throw shooting. Because even when it seemed like, oh, maybe they did, it was still only 73% in 2 games. That's not exactly good. They had one half. First half against Northeastern where they were 13 of 14 from the free throw line. That must have been a miracle. I don't know if we'll ever see another stretch this season where Syracuse makes 13 of 14 free throws. What is up with Sadiq White in free throw shooting? Can we talk about that for a moment? Because I don't know if we have talked about that at length here on Locked On Syracuse so far. Sadiq White, when I see him at the line, it doesn't seem like he has terrible form. Like William Kyle, is not going to be a good free throw shooter because you watch him shoot a free throw and you say, yeah, that doesn't look right. Sadiq White, the form looks fine. He can't make free throws consistently. It's all mental, I think. 4 of 9 from the free throw line tonight. That's not going to cut it come conference play. We know that because you're not playing Stonehill in every game. Who else? JJ Starling, is not a good free throw shooter because of his hitch in his shot for some reason. He doesn't have it on normal jump shots, but he has it on free throws. Who else? Naithan George, 5 of 7 isn't great. Kyan Anthony, 2 of 4. It doesn't make sense. The only 2 players that should be bad free throw shooters are William Kyle because he's a center and his form isn't very good, and JJ Starling because I don't know how it's been so long and they still can't correct it. Everyone else should be good, but that's just not the reality of this team. I don't really understand it. We know that it has cost Syracuse a couple of games this season, the big one being the Houston one, where they lost in overtime thanks to shooting less than 50% from the free throw line, I believe. So, it can bite you. Didn't have to worry about it tonight. And I give Syracuse, obviously, a lot of credit for winning by 29. But just want to point out that the free throw shooting, it reared its ugly head again. It has not turned a corner. And given that it has now been 13 games this season overall, I don't think it's ever going to change. Maybe you feel differently, so feel free to comment your thoughts right now in the comments section below on the free throw shooting, on Naithan George, and overall your takeaways from Syracuse's victory over Stonehill. Now coming up, what is next for Syracuse basketball? We'll talk about that on Locked On Syracuse coming up. There's nothing like college football season, tailgates, packed stadiums, and being right there in the middle of it all. I mean, there's only 8 teams left in college football. You got the energy, the bands, the moments you remember forever, but actually getting tickets, well, that's the frustrating and annoying part. You got long queues, you got logins, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Gametime. It gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. And knowing prices include all fees up front makes the whole process stress-free. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKED, ONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Locked on Syracuse, I'm Jackson Holzer. Let's talk about the road ahead for Syracuse basketball after a dominant 77-48 victory over Stonehill to round out conference or out-of-conference play. The Orange are 9-4 overall. Now, tomorrow, myself and Neil Adler, we will break down if that is good, what it ultimately means for Syracuse to be 9-4 in non-conference play. I'll keep it short and sweet here for now. It's not the greatest, I'll be honest with you all. They're still not going to be rated very high in any of the advanced metrics come conference play on New Year's Eve. But 9-4 is 9-4. So it does give Syracuse at least it's not super likely, but they do get a path in the ACC and with all the opportunities to potentially make a run. Fair enough? Their next game begins conference play. And it is one of the most important games that they are going to play all season long. And here's why. It's against Clemson. Clemson is a good team. That is going to be a quad 2 game on Syracuse's home floor. That is an opportunity for Syracuse to pick up an early ACC quality win. And you're at home. But it's not just the opponent that Syracuse is playing. It's what happens after the opponent. If Syracuse can beat Clemson, get that big victory, here is Syracuse's schedule after Clemson. At Georgia Tech, at Pitt, Florida State at home, at Boston College, Virginia Tech at home. You beat Boston. You beat Clemson at home. Then there is no excuse for Syracuse not to win the next 5 games after that. And they could potentially start 6-0 in ACC play. And that would be critical because we know that, oh, look, they're playing some of the lesser teams in the conference early. Well, that means that some of the tougher teams are coming later in ACC play, because right after those games, you got Miami at home, which would probably be another quad 2 game for Syracuse. Maybe there's an outside shot that is a quad 1 game, but probably quad 2. And then at NC State, since that's a road game, it'll definitely be quad 1 for Syracuse. NC State, no doubt, is going to be a top 75 team in the net when all is said and done. That is why beating Clemson is so critical. You can get yourself an early quality conference win and then potentially go on a run to begin ACC play. If you lose to Clemson, yeah, you might still go on a run playing some of the lesser teams in the conference, but at the same time, it puts more pressure on Syracuse having to run the table against the lesser teams without having that Clemson win. And B, if you don't get the Clemson win, then even if you beat some of the lesser teams in the ACC, they're not resume builders. They're record builders, but they're not resume builders. Nobody's going to care if you go on the road and you beat Pitt or you beat Georgia Tech or you take care of Florida State. That's what tournament teams are supposed to do. So beating Clemson on New Year's Eve is very, very important for Syracuse basketball in terms of their aspirations to ultimately make the NCAA tournament, which, to come full circle, again, the expectations have to match the stakes of this season. Do you think that Syracuse is going to do enough in ACC play to make the NCAA tournament? And do you think that Syracuse is going to beat Clemson at home on New Year's Eve? Comment your thoughts in the comment section below. That is the road ahead for Syracuse basketball after a 77-48 48 victory over Stonehill. Apologies. I feel like I am losing my voice, but that's okay. As far as what's coming up on the podcast in the near future, tomorrow, myself and Neil Adler, we will break down this game a little bit further, but we will also preview, or not preview, because that'll be a Thursday podcast. More on that in just a moment. We will recap Syracuse in its out-of-conference play this season. That's what we're going to do on tomorrow's show. And then on Wednesday, don't worry, this is already taped. It's already recorded. Syracuse football, defense, transfer portal needs. That will premiere on Wednesday. And then Thursday. Merry Christmas, everyone. There will be a podcast on Thursday. So feel free to enjoy it whenever you want. But it will come out on Christmas. Maybe you have a little break with your family. I don't know. Maybe your family's in an uncomfortable conversation about who knows what, and you would like to distract yourself with Syracuse basketball stuff. So there will be a Syracuse basketball podcast, and we will break down more specifically what Syracuse needs to do in conference play to give themselves a chance at making the NCAA tournament. AKA, let's just go undefeated, run the table in conference play, and everyone's happy. That would be great, right? But all that and more coming up on Locked On Syracuse in the near future. Folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. If you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. Tell all your friends about Locked On Syracuse, and I will see you all again soon.